The question is, without transparency, progress towards developmental goals can be slow, inefficient, and undermined by corruption and mismanagement. Discuss with example. So this question is from the GS paper 4, and it is clearly visible that this question is focusing on transparency and its importance towards erasing the corruptions and mismanagements. So let's discuss the answer then. We started with a quote. Public money ought to be tasked with the most scrupulous conscientiousness of honor. It is not the product of riches only, but of the hard earnings of labor and poverty. Thomas Paine. So we can make it simple that public money should be tasked with most scrupulous way, because this public money is not just the product of riches, but actually most of this part are from the hard earnings of labor and poverty. We can simply write like that. This is the quote from Thomas Paine. Kautilya also wrote extensively on handling public funds in Arthashastra, which remains relevant even today. Government and public funds are riddled with corruption, and only complete accountability and transparency can rid us of this situation. So, Kautilya in his Arthashastra talk about the management of these corruption issues, means how to address corruption issues. According to him, government and public funds are riddled with corruption, and only with complete accountability and transparency can make these problems away from our society. Now, 4 principles underpin trust in the public finances. So 4টা প্ৰিন্সিপল আছে যেটো পাব্লিক ফাইনেন্সত থাকিব লাগে, হেগিটা হৈছে ট্ৰান্সপাৰেন্সি, এছুৰেন্স, একাউন্টেবিলিটি, অবজেক্টিভিটি. Transparency means accurate records that show where money is raised and where it is spent. Then assurance, figures and processes are checked by some experts, some independent experts. So that is assurance. Then accountability, decision makers are clearly identified and subject to strict rules and review of performance and outcomes. So accountability means that you should take the responsibility of successfully conducting one project, and if it fails, then it is you who will be accountable for it, and that makes that supervisor to go through the rules and regulations strictly and in a manageable way. So he will then focus on the performance and outcome. Then last one is objectivity. Policies are based on accurate information and rigorous analysis. So objectivity should be there. So we have seen 4 principles underpin trust in the public finances, and they are transparency, assurance, accountability, and objectivity. Now, the question of utilization of public funds has different aspects. First aspect relates to accountability and efficacy. Second aspect concerns the manner of fund utilization. Third aspects relates to the outputs and outcomes which results from the fund use. And the fourth aspect is the source of fund. So first is dealing with accountability and efficacy. Second is dealing with that how, in which manner the fund is utilized. Third is dealing with that what is the output and outcomes that is coming from the fund uses as a result of the fund uses. And fourth is that what is the source of fund. Finally, any fund utilization or expenditure has to meet the audit requirements. Audit is very necessary. Now, how lack of transparency affects the developmental goals? The very first point that comes to our mind in lack of transparency is the corruption. So the large sum of money, uh, uh, sorry, earmarked for public activities are taken away by the officials as well as politicians in the form of bribe. So, large sum of money earmarked for public activities actually been taken away by some corrupt officials and politicians in the form of bribes. And this results in the funds not able to contribute towards the development. So development is actually not growing, development is not happening if this type of things are, if this type of corruption issues are there. As for example, money allocated for construction of houses for poor is consumed by corrupt officials. We know about this. Even you and me, many of you have already actually observed these issues in your own village, right? Then political rivalry. Sometimes political class indulges in the act of vendetta where they do not cooperate in allocation or release of funds to their opposition, and they hope to reap the anger against their opponents for their political gains. And that is again a problem. Because of the political rivalry, many times funds are not released against their opponents, just for some political gains. Now, government in power not allocating development funds to the opposition MLAs, that is a major issue. Then diversion. The funds allocated to one activity is diverted into another to meet strict control over the finances. Like, funds allocated to road repair is diverted to giving freebies. So ये भी है, this is a two at a problem that diversion happens with respect to the funds allocation. Sometimes funds are allocated for some good causes, but that is being diverted to some another causes. Just in the case of this example, for road repair funds are released, but it is again actually diverted to give some freebies, and we all know that why freebies are given, right? Reverie culture. Then red tapeism issue is there. Colonial bureaucratic attitude sometimes acts as a hindrance in carrying out the development activities. They complicate the process due to which the funds are not properly utilized. And সেই ফাইলটো ইখন টেবুলৰ পৰা আনখন টেবুললৈ গৈ থাকিব, সেই red tapeism will be continuing because of that colonial bureaucratic attitude. Then transparency and accountability. What is the significance? It's sparse, it's vital to uphold the social contract. Citizens must be confident that they are protected by the law and that public institutions and servants will act in accordance with that law. Citizens should have that confidence, right? Then only this social contract will be upholded between the citizens and then particular lawmaking institution or public institutions. Then public institutions with operational independence from political control are more likely to be trusted to act in the public interest. So political control should not be there. A well-informed population is far more likely to be confident about investing for the future. This means both providing appropriate information in ways that are accessible and easy to understand, and educating citizens as well as inviting them to participate in decision making. See, we want means citizens in the decision making process, right? But for that, not all kind of population can contribute to, in a positive way, or you can say in a fruitful way, because awareness is also required. If you don't know about a particular stream, that how could you expect that your contribution will be kind of going to help towards that decision making process with respect to that scheme? So well informed population should be there in that participation, and for that awareness campaign should be held in those in those villages, right, or in those particular locations before such kind of democratic participation is in the decision making process is going on. Then effective public financial management requires that decision makers, citizens, and other stakeholders are able to follow the money to see how taxes were raised, why decisions to spend it were made, and how the money was actually spent and what was bought. So that should be that this all this level should be known to all these stakeholders, right? Decision makers, citizens, and others. Then where government plans and activities are measured against the expected outcomes and outputs, citizens and other stakeholders will be able to judge the performance of the government. And this in return, what happens? It will provide the basis for feedback and continuous improvement mechanism. Because if transparency there is there regarding the input and output, then citizens will see that how what progress is being gone done, and accordingly they can give some good feedback, and based on that feedback the next improvement mechanism can happen. Then for a public to believe that public officials will do the right things, a range of controls to promote integrity and ethical behavior and to tackle fraud and corruption is very much required. Then most importantly, the public must believe that individuals will be held responsible for their actions, no matter who they are. Means their particular positions is not going to help if they are involved in such kind of illegal activities or corruptions or fraud. A climate for investment is created when investors believe a state is stable, well run, and that political fiscal risks will be managed effectively. So this type of climate should be created then, so that the investor believe that the state wherein they are investing is stable, right? And this political and fiscal risks are reduced comparatively and rule manageably, right? Efficiently, we can say we have to use the word efficiently. Political and fiscal risk should be managed effectively. Then how we will conclude? Only the transparency and accountability can ensure that public funds are being used for the greater welfare and benefit of the people and society. Weeding out the corruption is also necessary to ensure that funds are not underutilized or siphoned off illegally. Only when we bring in more openness in uh, working of the government can there be real productivity and good governance. See the last line, what how we are ending? Only when we bring more openness. More openness means what? More transparency in the working of the government. Then only we can expect the real productivity as a result in our in a overall return, a good governance. So এই কুৱেশ্যনটো বহুতেই ইম্পৰ্টেণ্ট আছিল। মই ভাবো এই কুৱেশ্যনটো important not just to deal with this particular answer of this question, but that will help us to means deal with different questions that are means linked to this particular transparency, accountability, corruption, good governance, the output improvement or improvement of the so means what I can say that uh, government institutions, or what we can say that the people's participation. So all type of questions we can actually take help of the this answer to write a proper answer and definiteness in our analysis process. So we should not forget about the key points that we have discussed, like 4 principles to bring trust in the public finance: transparency, assurance, accountability, objectivity. And then some examples like this one are my favorite, that Thomas Paine said that public money ought to be tough with a more careful way, or most scrupulous and conscientiousness of honor, because this public money is not just the money of richest people. Actually, most part of this money are the hard earnings of labor and poverty. Similarly, Kautilya's work on Arthashastra. So these things will help us to give proper examples. So with this, I'm ending today's session. I hope that this session is fruitful to you. And that's the thing I'm expecting from this lectures, that helps you, me, and all of us to grow together and to a very good answer writing session for the upcoming examination. Thank you. Thank you very much.